In this episode of In the Trenches with Dave Lapham, brought to you by First Star Logistics, we visit with the executive of the year, according to Sporting News, Duke Tobin. And, you know, when a team has success, everybody is up for awards. Scouting department, no exception. Duke Tobin and his guys did an unbelievable job putting together the talent that made up this football team, whether it be free agency, draft, trade, utilized every way you can possibly utilize to improve the football team and to get the football team ready to compete at the highest level. And that's was all the way to Super Bowl 56 up until the very final stages of Super Bowl 56. Heck of a run, heck of a season. Duke Tobin tells us all about it. Welcome to this edition of In the Trenches with Dave Lapham, brought to you by First Star Logistics, emanating from our outstanding studios at First Star Logistics, as we do for every single episode. And our special guest in this one, how about the Sporting News Executive of the Year? That's right. That's what we're talking about. The Sporting News Executive of the Year, none other than Duke Tobin. Duke, congratulations on a well-deserved, well-earned honor, my man.
Well, it's certainly an honor to be honored. I'm not naive enough to believe that it's an individual award. It's great that the team is awarded that, really, and we've got the success of our team is due to a lot of people's work. I'm just the one that gets to accept it, but I'm certainly not naive enough to think it's about an individual. But we had a great job with our scouting department, our ownership, and our coaching staff all coming together to breed this success, and it's there's a lot of work ahead of us still.
Every member of your scouting department talks about how you have developed them, and you brought in some young performers who had great potential, and you're cultivating that and getting a lot out of these guys. How satisfying is it to you to see them mature, develop, blossom in this industry of the scouting world?
Yeah, I've got nothing but really high regard for the guys that, they have to do the work. It's like players. You can identify the traits, but they have to come in and do the work and make it happen and take advantage of the opportunities that they've been given. And really feel great about the way that our organization has developed and come together. And it means something to them. It's the most important trait is the care that goes into it. It's not just a job; it's a lifestyle. When you're in this business, it's a lifestyle. You have to want the lifestyle. You've got to accept the lifestyle, and they have, and they're really bright, and they're eager to take on more. That's another trait that's really important for guys in this business. It's not just give me my job. I don't need any more. These guys, they all want more. They're capable of more. And so I try to, as they've earned the right to have more responsibility, I try to give it to them. And honestly, I believe in them. And the way that we're structured, I have to. And they've done a great job.
And they talk about how satisfying it is that their voice is heard. Sometimes in some organizations, you're just like a number. You're just like a cog in the. You're not even a cog in the wheel. You're like a little nut or a bolt in the wheel, in the cog in the wheel. It's and your opinion doesn't really carry that much value in this organization. Their opinions mean a lot, don't they?
It's important to be important and valued and necessary, and our guys are important, valued, and necessary. And the work that they do on a Wednesday in October is needed, it's valued, and it's important to the club. And I think knowing that, you get better results from people. If they believe that they're one of six that is going to be doing that exact identical work on a different day, sometimes maybe the drive wouldn't be quite as high to get it right. But our guys, we rely on them to get it right when they're on college campuses. And so knowing that the team values what they're doing that particular day, even though it's Wednesday in October and and you're in Fargo, South Dakota, or Fargo, North Dakota. It's important to the team, and they realize that, and that drives them to be great on that Wednesday and to get up on Thursday and be great again on Thursday. And that's it's a good thing for an ambitious scout to have on his plate is importance to the organization.
And you're coming to us from Indianapolis. The Combine Week is underway, and you've been there obviously from Jump Street, and you're you're part of the organization. Your personnel department, they've been getting ready for this the entire year, and everybody talks about 7 month season, the longest season in NFL history. The Bengals take it all the way to the final game in that
Yeah,
longest season in NFL history.
the
How
final
has
minute and a half, Lap.
Yeah, exactly. Final minute and a half for sure. It was a thriller, hell of a football game. Um, how has that made things a little bit different? I'm not sure if it's more difficult, but obviously it's different this year than it has been in past years. How difficult has it been?
Maybe maybe I'm a little bit further behind. Maybe our coaches are a little bit further behind. Our scouts are right on course,
Mhm.
it doesn't change their dynamic. I mean, they've been building towards the combine, they're building towards pro days, they're building towards the draft, they're building towards free agency, and those are all set dates. And so we're right on schedule as a scouting department, despite the fact that we had a long season. Uh, there's probably some in the organization that are catching up, me included, but those aren't the important cogs. The important cogs are our scouts, and they're ready for this and prepared as they always are every year.
The combine is back to more normalcy, I guess, in terms of dealing with COVID-19. It's almost back to as close to normal as it can be. But what do you what are the main things that you get out of the combine? Is the combine kind of a verification from a physical standpoint, checking boxes about what your scouts have said in that regard? Is the big thing actually sitting down and getting FaceTime and actually seeing what makes a guy tick a little bit?
I like every element of it. I think every element has its importance. So I don't say this is not necessary. I think all the different elements are necessary and good. I do enjoy getting to see the personality of the guys that I've watched on tape that we've evaluated as a staff, and kind of it's the report coming to life. And I can read the report, and then I can immediately understand why our scout wrote that, felt that, expressed that in our meetings. So that's great to be in front of the guys. It's obviously very important to get a physical on them to make sure that they're up for the rigors of the NFL. And then I also like seeing their physical characteristics. I think that's important. We have a job that not many people can do, and there are qualifications for it. And it's nice to see the qualifications come out, and you can say, okay, that's the trait we're looking for, and then dive deeper into that player.
The roster, in my opinion, has got as much depth as any in the National Football League. I think it's up there with anybody's. The Rams obviously had their 5 star guys, that made big plays and ultimately ended up winning the football game. But I think from 1 to 53 or 1 to 50, whatever it would be with COVID numbers, I'll take our roster. I mean, you guys have done an incredible job of building a very deep, very talented roster, and you've done it by free agency, by draft, by trade. I mean, you've done every way that it can be done. When you start in the off season, do you focus on free agency for a period of time and then go to the draft, or do you commingle the whole thing and see where strengths are from this position is probably more handled in the free agency aspect of things, this one in the draft? Do you separate them? Do you commingle them? How do you go about all that?
It's always a marriage of the two. We start with our own football team, so I felt the same way about our team this year throughout the season. Is I thought we had answers if we had injuries, and that's a good feeling to have. And I thought there was times when we needed to go outside the organization and bring in another answer just to be sure that we had enough guys. Um, Unfortunately, the way that the NFL works, every year you're putting together your team again, really, for the most part. And we've got 46 guys under contract right now,
Mm,
so we've got a long way to go to get to 90.
right.
But I think you start with your own team when you're looking at your needs and who you want back and the value of each and every player as to what you feel is the proper value for a player, and then you've got to try to tease out what does the player feel about coming back and what does he feel about his value, and you got to find the commonalities there, and hopefully we're able to do that. Each team's different. Some teams need more outside help. Some teams need your own guys to re-sign, and some teams need a blend. And so after the season, that those were conversations we had about who would we feel great about trying to get back, and where are the areas maybe that we want some outside help or want to look for outside help. It's hard to predict the draft. It's hard to predict free agency. So you got to be ready for all the options that come at you at a moment's notice. And that's where we are now. It'll be a blended approach. We'll look within other teams in the NFL. We'll also look at the college level, and we'll certainly focus on guys that we've had on our roster who we know and like.
Like Jessie Bates, obviously. I mean, I
Mhm.
know you probably ad nauseum had questions about, wow, when is Jessie Bates going to sign? When are you going to be able to get that deal done? I know it's a priority. I mean, Jessie Bates, hell of a football player and hell of a person, on top of football player. I mean, that's the kind of guy, obviously, in a perfect world, you'd like to get something done with, I imagine.
Jesse's important to us. Jesse's a success story for the Cincinnati Bengals because, we drafted him, he developed with us, and he's a very highly regarded player around the NFL.
Yeah.
And so we want our guys to do that. We want our guys to, when we draft a guy, we have a vision for him, and we want every player to be in a position to where they're highly regarded, because that means that they've done the things that we thought they could do. And so he's important to us. We want to try to work something out with him, and we want him to be a Cincinnati Bengal. And that's where we are, and we'll see what we can do to get that done.
And I know, another subject that everybody hits on is the offensive line. Oh, you got to get, offensive linemen and upgrade that position group. You addressed the offensive line in last year's draft in the second round, fourth round, and sixth round. And, I mean, you certainly have some potential with all three of those football players. I mean, developing those guys is going to be a big priority, I guess, isn't it?
It is, and Dave, you would know this more than most people. When you're a 22-year-old guy playing in the trenches in the NFL and you're lined up against 29 and 30, it's not college football where you might
Right.
have a year or two difference. You
Yep.
might have 8 to 10 years difference,
Yep.
8 to 10 years physical development, 8 to 10 years uh, instinctual development, technique development. So it's a tough transition in the trenches. When you get to the NFL game, the college game in the trenches is not the same as the NFL game. And so that is a transition that typically takes longer. You can take the great skill set from a college outside wideout, running back, even tight ends, and they can translate that faster because it's going against good athletes. You're going against good athletes. There isn't the strength, physicality difference. But when you get in the trenches in the NFL for the first time, I don't care where you played, it's a transition. Some people make it faster than others, um, but there's a big jump between year one and year two. They know what to expect. They've played against good players. Lord knows our offensive linemen have played against the best players that this league
Yeah.
has to offer
Yeah.
on a weekly basis in the playoffs, and we were able to beat those teams. And so they've seen what is out there and what's ahead of them, and I think that experience will really pay off for the young players that we played up front this year. And,
I
like with every position, we'll look to improve. We'll look to see if there's some options
sure.
that we feel are maybe a little better for the near term and the long term.
You make a great point. I mean, I remember during the course of my rookie year, it was like, man, didn't know what I didn't know. I mean, it's like
Mhm.
these guys, it's like the Autobahn. I mean, the speed of the game was like, woof. I mean, you have to make decisions so much quicker. And they are, like you said, I experienced it in college. I was a freshman, true freshman, playing against when we scrimmaged the varsity. Freshmen couldn't play varsity football. My freshman year was last year. Freshmen couldn't be part of the varsity football games. So we would scrimmage the varsity, though. And I was going against a guy named Billy Coghill, who was a Vietnam veteran, a 23-year-old man. And I'm like, not even 18. I'm a snot-nosed 17, 18-year-old kid. And you talk about, old man strength and knowing what the heck he was doing, what he was seeing. I was like, wow. I mean, this isn't like, high school football anymore. I can tell you that. And then you do the same thing. You make that jump and you're going against a Pro Bowl guy that's been in the league for 8 or 9 years. And, he's pushing 30 and you're 22 years old. You're right. I mean, that's a major league wake-up call. There's absolutely no question about it. Free agency, it's interesting. Over the last couple of years, defensively, you really hit jackpot, in many instances on the defensive side of the football. And then offensively, it was more through the draft. There was some signings, obviously, and then there was a trade defensively as well. Did it just happen that way, or did you evaluate things and say, well, this is the way we're going to have to go because, here's where the talent is slanted in free agency, here's where the talent is slanted in the draft? Or was it just as you started knocking pieces off, it just kind of fell into form that way?
It's a little bit of both. It's hard to describe, but that's part of our postseason analysis. Is do we have guys that we desperately want to have back, and do we want to put our resources in our own players? B, do we have resources and need for veteran players from other teams that are proven at certain spots? And then, which on defense, we felt that the last couple of years, that we needed some guys from the outside to fill in. In terms of the draft, it's nice to fill your needs, but it's also very important to stay true to the talent level of guys when you're picking them, and you don't get to determine who's left over for you, particularly at 31. It's going to be more of a second round discussion for us at that level, which is fine. I think the pool will be a little broader, and maybe it's a little easier to hit your needs at the proper talent level. And so we feel good about that. But that's just part of our post season review as to, where are the best options to fill in where we need to fill in. And you just never know what you're going to get done. It's nice to get into free agency. And there's a guy like Trey Hendrickson that we're interested in, that he's interested in us. And I think that'll be, I think the awareness of the Cincinnati Bengals is certainly very high. And so we might find ourselves in that position as well. The money's got to be right. I mean, and that's going to be the driving force in most decisions. But all things equal, I think we've got a good chance of attracting a lot of guys that we think can help us.
Guys like Trey Hendrickson, like you speak of, and others, they all said the Joe Burrow factor. DJ Reader brought it up. Trey Hendrickson, Trey Hendrickson did. We're talking about defensive players that were still drawn. The pull of Joe Burrow was real. I mean, was a factor. Yeah. And now you have, Zach Taylor and the culture that he's built, and the way the players feel about the coaching staff and the coaching staff feel about the players. That stuff gets around the league, and
people see our fan base, and that was good. People see the passion that our fans bring, and they saw it on a national scale. When we went on the road in the playoffs, they got a real appreciation for what we already knew is we've got great fans, and players like that. Players respond to that.
So at First Star Logistics, we're a very strict company that really puts the pressure on our employees. Breaks? What are those?
That's what I'm talking about, Icky. Get the body right, then the mind's right.
Gotta get that body right.
That's right.
Yes, sir.
Become a star with a chance to earn the highest commission percentages in the industry as a freight broker agent. Check out firststarlogistics.com.